I have been an illustrator for about 4 years now. You can find me at saraalpha.com or Sara Alfageeh everywhere that matters. So that's Instagram and Twitter. And so primarily right now, I'm a comic artist and I'm an art director in video games. I'm 24 years old, and as mentioned before and kind of hinted at in the title of this seminar, I'm in Boston, and sometimes I'm in San Francisco. So I kind of hop between two ends of the country. I started drawing at about 17 years old, so I would say that I was a bit late to the game. A lot of people who I know who are artists, they tend to say like, oh, I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil, and that definitely wasn't the case for me. I didn't grow up in an environment that, had artists around. I never really took art classes before. And I didn't quite discover it until I started being part of like online fandoms. And I started seeing fan art for like anime or video games or, TV shows. And I started seeing other teenagers draw. And then I started realizing, oh, I want to try that. If these kids can do it, like, why can't I? And I actually didn't think of it as anything more than a hobby until I got into college. So I actually attended college to be a psychology student, and that lasted about 20 minutes. I absolutely hated it, and I wasn't a very good psychology student. And I took this one single art class for fun. And more I realized very quickly I was pouring all of my time and my energy and my attention into this one single art class above anything else. And so fast forward, by the time I reached my third year, I started doing professional work. I very quickly, wanted to go from being a student to being, a working pro. And I realized that I could just shift my mentality and start pursuing it right away. So I graduated in 2018, just 2 years ago, from a very average art school in Boston. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't, RISD. It didn't have the big name. It was just the art school that happened to be around my city. And, I was just a student a couple of years ago, like a lot of you guys are. And in the same year, a lot of you guys were. Just to get it out of the way, the main stuff I use is this MacBook Pro that I'm currently talking to you guys through. I use this Cintiq, it's a 22 HD, and the Photoshop brushes that come automatically with Photoshop CC. And when I'm traveling, I use the same MacBook, but I switch to my iPad, and I use my iPad kind of as a tablet. So I've worked for quite a variety of clients, and I've done quite a large variety of work. So my clients include Harvard, I've done work for Marvel, I've done characters for Star Wars, I recently did a Google Doodle. And with illustration, I primarily focused on publishing and character design work for video games and posters as well. And most of that you can see on my website, saraalpha.com, if you open it in another tab. And when I wasn't doing that, I also did a lot of comic conventions. So I would go to the different conventions around the United States and I would sell my prints there for supplemental income. And then there I would also get to meet my publishers and do signings and things like that. For art direction, I did work for short films, for live shows, and for promotional campaigns. So in that kind of case, instead of being the artist, I would be in charge of hiring the artists and setting the direction and the tone for how these events would happen or how these promotional campaigns would go on. And I very much enjoyed that kind of collaboration. I'm very much an artist who is extroverted, and I take a lot of pleasure in working with other artists. I don't ever want to just work by myself. So yeah, I currently do two things primarily, and that is comics. I'm in the middle of drawing a fantasy graphic novel called Squire that I'm the co-creator for alongside my other co-creator, Nadia Shamas. And I also have an assistant who helps me on some of the technical aspects of the art. She does the flat colors for me, and she does file setup. Other than that, I came up with the plot of this book as well as I'm drawing it right now. It'll be out next year during the winter, and right now my deadline is in March, so I have quite a bit of work ahead of me. The second thing I do when I'm not busy with that is I'm the co-founder and art director for a company called Multiverse. We are combining like tabletop role-playing games with like a Mario Maker kind of thing. So making it as easy as possible to play, stream, and build games on your own. We have currently 13 full-time team members, and I'm in charge of an art team of 5. I literally owe my entire career to Twitter. And I'm gonna go into it today of like how I went from not even knowing that art was a thing at 17 to, you know, doing work for Marvel and Star Wars and Google by the time I was 24. So starting in late 2017, in the third year of my art school, and I understand a lot of you students are also in your third year, I had maybe 100, 200 Twitter followers. And I decided to get on it, and I decided to make it my primary social media platform. I didn't know what would come out of it at that time, but I understood that one, other artists were on that platform. Art directors who would hire me were on that platform. Editors were on that platform. So I decided to go where I thought the work would be. And kind of like walking through how I started to go from, you know, that 200 that I started with a couple years ago to the 60K that I have now. Sorry? Oh, I thought I heard a question. So kind of, I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about how I managed to build up that social media audience, and I'd be very happy to like take questions on it as well. So the first thing that I did when I wanted to start presenting myself as a professional, I had to realize that I had to show that I had work to even prove that I was a professional. I had to show that I could finish a project on my own before I could convince anyone else to hire me for a project. So I built this thing called the Boy Bye Project. It was a series of prints and pins and just illustrations that I really enjoyed. And I just started to share that work online, and I started to interact with other people who I thought would enjoy that work and try to see different ways I could get their attention. And I'm going to share some of those ways in a little bit. So I actually started talking to people online. You often forget that on social media, it's not just about you and curating your audience, but it's also about interacting with a really broader community and understanding that the people around you are going to be the people who not only get you work, but also like lift you up. And they're going to be the people you want to turn to when you have questions about illustration. So having people kind of like around the same career stage as me was really important. It was really important that when I was talking to them, I was being nice, I was being friendly, curious about them. It wasn't just about self-promotion. It was very much about lifting up the people around me that I was talking to on Twitter, as well as trying to like lift my own work up. And when I was sharing my work, the reason that this was easy is because I was primarily focusing on work that I enjoyed. I only wanted to be hired to do work that I was interested in doing. And so I prioritized that over everything else. I didn't try to do work I thought people wanted me to do. I didn't try to like, draw Batman because I thought Batman was popular. I did whatever was first interesting to me. And that kind of helped curate my portfolio and my own professional voice. So again, I was sharing myself, my interests, and I wasn't just a persona. You know, I tried to present myself like fully as me, as Sara. So I tried to focus on like, how do you turn tweets into jobs? So the first thing on Twitter in particular, and the reason why I think this platform is really strong for artists, is that you can put a lot of information in a single glance. So the first thing someone sees on your page on Twitter is going to be your bio and then the pinned tweet. So that is the tweet that's always the first thing to show up, no matter, you know, like what day it is. So in my bio, I have my name very clearly stated. I have my email always available. So if anyone wants to come into contact with me, it's as easy as possible. I have my portfolio link. So if any art director, any editor shows up on my page because they found a post of mine, they found a funny tweet, they found artwork of mine, they know where to find more of it. So here they have my name, they know how to contact me, and they can see my work. And then underneath, I want to focus their attention even more. So I show only the best work that I have, and I show examples that I specifically want to be hired for. And I think this is a common problem that artists who are just starting out with their professional career struggle with, where they try to put everything they've ever done into the first glance, into their portfolio, into their Instagrams. And that can be very confusing for someone who wants to hire you, because then they don't know like what you're actually good at or what you're actually interested in, and they don't know what they're going to receive after they've hired you. So if you try to be very specific about what you're good at, you'll make everyone else's job a lot easier when it comes to paying you to do your work. And then finally, and this is where it gets specific to Twitter, is like using a relevant hashtag that other illustrators are using. I'm someone who I've hired artists before, as well as been hired, through these social media means. And it's almost always because they were able to click through a hashtag a lot of other artists were using, and they were able to see my work through there. Um, so now it goes down to the specifics of like when I'm turning tweets into jobs, like how I share the work in particular can really help me. Now I've done my best to do my artwork, and now I have to give it the best chance for the most amount of people to see it. So when I'm sharing client work in particular, I try to personalize it. I want to make it about me. I don't want to make it seem like a sponsored post. I try to give a little bit of context that's interesting. And I keep in mind what works best for this platform. So while Instagram likes, square posts, while the stories like vertical posts, on Twitter, they really like horizontal images. So keeping that in mind so that people see your work in the best light. And don't add a link if you don't have to. Whenever you add links onto Twitter posts, the algorithm tends to like push it farther along on the timeline because they think it's an advertisement. When I share personal work, now this is the stuff that's just for me, I try not to add a lot of fluff. I keep the text very minimal. I don't add a link. Again, I think if horizontal is better, I'll try to make the artwork in that kind of way. I think about how it'll be cropped, and I try to focus on when I share it. So you often hear about like sharing it in mornings or evenings for that high traffic time, but it tends to be specific to the majority of the people who are following you. So if I know I have a lot of European followers, I want to post to the mornings for them, not necessarily for the mornings to me. And I notice this even when I travel. If I'm on the West Coast, I get less traction because I'm posting to the wrong schedule. And then finally, it just comes down to sharing your own self. People hire you not just for your work, but who you are. Ultimately, you're going to be sharing your perspective, your input, your biases, whatever makes your worldview into the work that you're doing. So having people interested in you as much as your work, it can be pretty important. And again, this is still going to be a public platform. So, stay positive. Remember, people see how you're talking. And not everything has to go viral. So don't always just, chase after those numbers. It can be surprisingly stressful. So that's kind of like the last I have to say on that point. So again, the type of followers you have is a lot more important than the number of followers. I say this, I'd rather have 300 editors following me than 30,000 anime like fans, because those people can't hire me, but these people can. So don't get too hung up on the numbers. Social media is another job on top of being an artist. And you have to put the effort into learning it. You have to put the effort into keeping up with it and understanding like how it changes if you want to remain ahead of it. And it's not an easy one to keep up with. And you still have to not only do that, but also on top of that, be a strong artist, so that when people see your work, it's worth hiring. You're a creative professional the moment you decide you are, the moment you present yourself as one. What's kind of amazing about illustration is that no one cares where you graduated from. They don't care what part of the world you're in. They don't care how old you are or how long you've been doing this. All they care about is, can you get the job done? Can you get the work done in an interesting way that someone else can't? And can you do it nicely? So if you are easy to work with, you're on time, and you're getting the work done, you're fine. So you could still be a student and start getting work. And I really do believe that it's It is the greatest time to be an illustrator with the way that social media has opened up so many different doors. And it's a very exciting time to be an illustrator because there's so many ways to do work. And sometimes it doesn't have to be about getting hired. You could be creating your own audience, with YouTube and Patreon and Twitch and all of that. Sometimes you don't need a client at all and you can just get started. And I know right now it's a particularly stressful time to be a student. It's a stressful time to be someone in a unstable field, but it's gonna be fine. I think there is plenty of work out there, and I wouldn't stress about doing it the correct way. I would just do it the way that feels right to you first, and making that work. And yeah, that's what I got. Not question time yet. It's Rachel's time.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel?
Okay, can I start now?
Yeah.
I've got so many new insights from listening to Sarah's just now, so it's amazing. I can't wait to talk to you more after this session ends.
Let's do it. But your turn first.
Okay. So do you guys see my slideshow already?
Yeah.
So, well, my name is Rachel, and for you guys who doesn't know me yet, I'm a full-time illustrator and graphic designer right now, mainly because I took graphic design originally as my major. I have graduated 4 years ago from Bandung Institute of Technology. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a bit about what I do right now. Oh, I can't click next. Do you guys still see it?
I think you need to scroll down, Rachel. The scrolling work.
Okay. Do you see it in full screen though?
Yep.
Okay.
It's windowed. It's windowed.
Yeah. There's
But-
yeah.
Wait, let me stop sharing first and then I'll try it again.
I think it's because it's in PDF.
No, it worked just fine just now.
Okay.
Wait, let me try it again. Okay, you guys see it in full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about a bit about my high school experience. I don't know about you, Sarah, in the US, but us here, especially Indonesian, we have like this kind of stereotype that artists usually won't be able to make a living out of pursuing art as a career.
Yeah, that's stereotypes everywhere.
Oh, okay. So,
No one thought I'd make money either.
yeah, right. And then I had experience when at the time I've got so many discouragement from my surroundings, but fortunately I have a very supportive family, and my dad especially, he always says that you can just pursue anything that you want and he would still be okay with it as long as I give it my best shot. So I decided that I wanted to be a graphic designer at the time because I didn't know about this profession at all. It's not common in Indonesia. Well, it's getting more common right now as we could see a lot of illustrators are coming up on the internet, on Instagram, on Twitter, on every social media platform, but it wasn't that popular back then. So yeah, I only wanted to be a graphic designer. And then after high school, I took graphic design as my major. But actually, I have started doing this kind of freelance work since I was still in high school. So maybe it's similar to what you guys have in the US. I believe it's called Sweet 16, where girls throw like a huge birthday parties. It's the same here in Jakarta. So my peers at the time, my friends, used to hold a sweet 17. It's not 16 here, it's 17. So they hold sweet 17 parties, huge parties that would have like over 300 or 500 guests at once. They would have invited celebrities, and they have these grand prizes such as like iPhones, iPads, and stuff like that. So it's really huge.
I feel like I missed out. I want to be 17 in Jakarta now.
Well, I was quite surprised myself because I don't live in Jakarta. I just went to school there, so I was kind of surprised that people really spend that much money on birthday parties. But the positive side of this is everyone needs an invitation. They needed a designer to do their birthday invitations and stuff like that, to do their souvenirs design. And it all started when my best friend was going to have her sweet 17th birthday. And then I offered to do her invitation for free, but I put my name on the back of the invitation. Somehow word spread, and then I started getting clients, more and more clients that I feel like I was doing it full time, you know. So I went to school, and then I learned afterwards. I went to my courses, like math courses, economic courses, English courses, music classes, and after that, I would work on my freelance projects. So it continued until when I got admitted into college as well. So yeah, I think I'm pretty blessed and lucky because when I started to work as an illustrator full time, I already have the network going on for me. And after that, I just want you guys to know that this is my current situation. I am now have like 3 people working with me. As you can see, Deborah right here is my sister, but she's also my manager. So she talks to clients. She handles everything for us. And then I have Jen, an animator, and then this girl on the far left would be Nofi. She is a graphic designer as well. So mostly we take projects from brands. I don't really do personal commission anymore for personal purposes. So mostly our brands come from the fashion and beauty industry. And this is my studio life right here, as you can see. This is the same place that I put right here on my slideshow. So these are the pictures that of some objects that I really like, and then some poems and some excerpts from the books that really inspire me and my work. So whenever I get bored, I just read it again. And this is where I usually work. I like huge windows, so that's why it's everywhere, so that I can get natural light and I can see my paints better, the colors better, because I couldn't paint digitally as well as Sarah. And I think like I work better with just manual paints or manual tools. This is just another details from my studio. And then this is my previous projects and clients. I have worked with Unfortunate, Shiseido Kills, L'Occitane, Yore. Chitra is a local brand. Langko Makeover, Changi Airport, and banking like CIMB and UOB. I would like to show you a bit about my work. These are only like a few of my favorite projects until now. This one is for Aldo. I don't know if you have it over there, Sarah, Aldo.
Yep, we have Aldo.
Oh, you have it? Yeah, so yeah, it's like a fashion brand of like bags and shoes for women.
Mhm.
So I was asked to illustrate something that would represent the diversity of Indonesian nature, but I wasn't allowed to use a lot of colors. I was only allowed to use red and pinks, which was very challenging for me because originally I like colors very much and I tend to use a lot of colors in my work. So this one is pretty challenging, but I kind of like the result as well. And then they printed it on their laptop bags. So yeah, I got really excited. I get really excited every time I see my works as prints or on a final product. You know, it's just like an amazing feeling to walk into a store and just strolling in a mall and then just see your work being displayed and seeing someone actually wearing it, and it means someone really like your work. They
It's
have
an addictive
really like
feeling for sure.
want to wear it on them, right? And then this one is when I was doing a live painting session for Chanel. So they have this program and events where they usually invite their VIP clients once a year and then just treat them to some fancy dinner or something like that in their boutique stores. And usually they hire artists to do some live painting for as souvenirs for these VIP clients. This is another live painting for Shiseido. And this one is one of my all-time favorite projects. This is a very rare opportunity that I got to illustrate for Changi Airport, like the best airport in the world. Like they asked me to just come over to Changi, so they took Deborah, my manager, and I for a 2-day trip just to tour around Changi Airport, guarded by the Changi Airport team, where they told these amazing stories about the airport and the jewel airport that is very new. So they told us because Indonesians is like the second biggest market for Singapore after China, because us Indonesians spent a lot of money in Changi Airport. Turns out, I just found out about that as well when I got this project. They actually decided to invite a few Indonesians from various industry. Like I was invited to represent the creative industry, and someone else was picked to represent the beauty industry in Indonesia, and so on. And then I was asked to just enjoy everything, enjoy all the games and then the rides that Changi has to offer, and then turn it into art, which was pretty exciting because they told me about some amazing stories about this jewel airport, such as this airport houses around 3,000 different plants from around the world. And then they needed to incubate these plants for like 2 years before actually they can plant it in Changi Airport. So I was also told about the glass dome that you can see on the top of my illustration, that it is all handmade, and there are more than like 3,500 pieces of it. So it was quite amazing. This is a series for Changi, so I've done 4 illustrations for them. This is one of them. This is a Singapore night scene, and which contains my most favorite places in Singapore. And then this is their Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 reimagined. So they have an art installation in the middle. You can see it's called A Million Times, where if you stare at these clocks, they will form some kind of welcoming sentences in various languages from around the world, which is pretty cool. And then they also tell me that the reason that Changi Airport has a lot of koi ponds is because it is found in research that koi tends to calm down stress. So they don't want the passengers to have a lot of traveling stress. That's why they put koi ponds all over the airport. And this one is the last one I did for Changi. Yeah, the amazing part about this is I just found out that Changi has a butterfly park, which is free, and you can just stroll around when you're waiting for your flight. And they're building, when I got there, they're building a new giant slide You can see it on the bottom right, that is built for adults. So it's really amazing. This one is an illustration that I made for a local makeup brand called Rollover Reaction. So I did this illustration and then it turned into this special set of lipstick collection. And this is just a few about my work. I just want you guys to know that this is very different from what Sara does. So it's so interesting to know that she has worked with Marvel and such big studios that I can't even imagine working for.
I don't know. It sounds like you get people who fly you to places and hang out in amazing airports. All I get is free books. Like, I'm in the wrong industry.
I'm so interested in fashion and beauty, so yeah, it's fun, but it's also amazing to see an illustrator like you as well. So that's all about my work. I just want to give you guys some encouragement about working in this industry. I want to remind you to be relentless in the pursuit of excellence, not to give up so easily, especially when this industry is not like well known in Indonesia. And I know that you probably have to explain about this profession to your parents, to your closest ones, to your friends, but it's all worth it. If you really have the heart for it, it's really worth it. So yeah, just be relentless. And I just want to remind you as well that excellence is the quality of being outstanding and your willingness to strive for perfection itself. But excellence is not perfection. It's like more of a lifestyle, more of like an attitude. It's not result, it's not perfection, it's not success, which people tend to forget. And being the best and being your best is very different. While wanting to be the best is not wrong, it's also important to remember that you want to try to be the best version of yourself. This is like the difference between success and excellence. Success means that you want to exceed others' achievements sometimes, but excellence is matching your practice with your potential. And I read this from an article that is written by Brian Harbour, and I really like it. That's why I'm sharing it to all of my students and participants of my webinars. The pursuit of excellence is gratifying and healthy, but the pursuit of perfection is frustrating, neurotic, and a terrible waste of time. This is very true because as just like what Sara has said earlier in her presentation today, that nowadays competition is getting tighter and tighter. People are really trying to compete with one another instead of collaborating. And then it's so easy to fall to that pit when you see your peers work on social media and you end up comparing yourself to the others. And then you just keep chasing this invisible line, which will never end if you're trying to pursue this illusion of perfection. How to excel? First, you have to have the hunger for excellence itself. But when you have the hunger for excellence, you have to watch out because there's a very thin line between trying to be excellent and then having the spirit of competition. Are you looking for glory or significance, praise or applause? Are you looking for likes? Are you looking for followers? What are you looking for? And then this is another reminder. I actually resonate with a lot of what Sara has said today. That one thing that I really like about what she said earlier is that it's not always about you. It's not always about self-promoting yourself. It's not about showcasing your work all the time, but also about lifting each other's up. And then just seeing what everyone needs from you and then getting those needs met. It's really important for you to be sensitive enough to see what you can do for society, for your friends, for for other professionals as well and truly do the work to help them. There will be times when our day hasn't gone as we'd hoped, yet someone is still needing us to build them up with our gift. So we do it. That is excellence. Second, you have to build concrete strategy and plans. Like Sarah just explained as well, she explained how to build her social media presence on Twitter, especially. You have to have this concrete strategy and plans and be realistic about that as well. You can write down your vision and make it plain. Don't make it too complicated, make it realistic. But you are always allowed to dream big, don't mistake me. And then allow yourself and give yourself the grace to change. Like you can see, like I have a circle over here, but as the circle goes to its destination, the form changes. Give yourself the space to evolve. It's important. And then don't listen to unreliable critics. We need constructive criticism. We need it all the time, but try to differentiate between unreliable critics and constructive criticism. If it's wait. Okay, sorry. Don't listen to unreliable critics because some people will always try to bring you down. And it's up to you whether you want it to sink to your mind and to your heart or not. You can just stop it right there and just let it go and move along with your day instead of giving it a platform, giving it a space in your heart to grow, you know. You don't have to convince them, you don't have to appease them, just sit back, relax and watch and let it go. I figured that is the best way to combat unreliable critics. And then do not look to be offended or else you'll find it. I have heard about so many young artists and aspiring artists here in Indonesia who feel so hurt about what they hear, what they see from the media, what they see from their peers, what they hear from their parents about their passion in this industry. But you know, when you are called to do something, when you realize that this is your passion and you want to do it full time, the harsh truth is that other people don't have that obligation to understand you as well. It is you who is called, it's not them. So yeah, it's only normal when they don't get it because they don't have that vision the same way that you do. So yeah, just don't look to be offended or else you'll find it. And then you have to have courage to fail and learn from past mistakes. One thing for sure is that you're going to fail. I'm going to fail. We're going to fail. There's no such thing as like nailing every project, nailing every obstacle that come your way. Life just doesn't work that way. Knowing that we are going to fail, you just have to like build that courage from inside of you to fail and just to own up to your mistakes and just learn from your past mistakes. How to have this courage is that first you can control your thoughts and then you can surrender judgment. This is very important for me, surrendering judgment, because I realized that I'm most afraid to be judged when I've been judging everyone else's work, even if it's only silently in my mind. Like you see something and then you say like, I don't think it's good enough, or you start to ripping it off, like spotting out the things that you don't like about someone's artwork, or worse, that person herself or himself. Then you will be afraid of being judged because you constantly judge people. So yeah, surrender judgment. And then learn to handle disappointment, learn to deal with like losing, learn to not getting what you want. And then the last thing is just do it afraid. Sometimes we are all waiting for the right time to build your career, the right time to post your work on your social media platform, the right time to do everything. But sometimes there won't be the right time, you know. Just do it afraid. You're still afraid, but you do it anyway. And ask yourself why. I would love to encourage everyone today to just take some time after this session ends and ask yourself why. Why do you want to pursue this path? Why do you want this career so bad? Why do you do what you do right now? Why do you study what you study right now? Ask yourself why, because this why is so important, because no matter what job you're taking in the future, you're getting burned out as well. Just because I like painting and I'm doing what I like doesn't mean that I don't get tired and I don't hate my job sometimes. I hate it sometimes, but the why keeps you going. When you're tired, you can always look back and see why you started all this. And if your why is strong enough, then it will keep you going to the end of your destination. Where to start? You can always start small. I just realized as well when Sarah told us earlier that the best thing about this job is you don't even have to have a client to start, you know. You can start by creating your own patient project or personal project. Doesn't have to be commercial, doesn't have to make money for you at first, but you can start, and you can really start freely with zero income, you know, like just with your tablet or just with your laptop, you can create something and then building a portfolio the way you want to. So yeah, I don't think there's an excuse nowadays to not starting, especially when social media becomes so accessible for us all. This is another quote that I really like. If you're here to be an artist, you must create, even if nobody understands the meaning of your work. If you're here to be a musician, you must play even for an empty room. If you're here to be a poet, you must write even if few will ever see your words. Your purpose is not to see how much recognition you can gain for doing what you love. Your purpose is to do it regardless. So yeah, I've been reading it from time to time, especially when I get lost, like when I see everyone is gaining a lot of followers in this pandemic. Everyone seems so productive. My friends, all of them seem so productive, seem to get more and more talented, more and more excellent in this pandemic, while I've been feeling like I'm struggling to keep up, to create a work that is meaningful, to create a work that looks good. So I end up hating my work a lot because I don't think I get the validation that I hope for from people. But when I read this quote, I am reminded that if I really love what I do, then it won't matter to me whether people could appreciate it or not sometimes, because not everyone could appreciate your work, and you please don't expect them to give you the validation you need each time you want it. Doesn't work that way as well. How to battle your insecurities in creating something. I think this is also important, especially when you want to start out and you don't know where to start, and then you've seen all these artists, and then you've seen all your friends are already settled on their social media. Like you see their work, and then you get envious, you get insecure. How to battle them? This is another quote that I really like as well. The unfed mind devours itself. There is nothing good that will come out of comparing yourself to the others. So if that's the only thing that you do with your mind and you're not really mindful about it, it will devour you. That would be the end of you. So make sure that you're thinking of thoughts that is worthy, that is true, and that's not really subjective. And please don't self-sabotage yourself. Take one step at a time, and then accept it. Accept and assess your feelings. Like, ask yourself, why are you feeling insecure? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of losing? Are you afraid of not landing a project at all? What are you afraid of? And then just accept the fact that you're afraid, that you're insecure. Accept that you're not the best in this field, even though you want to be the best. I want to be the best, but I have to accept the fact that I might not always be the best in the room, you know. Like oftentimes there are someone who is better than me, someone who draws better than me, someone who always comes up with better concept than me. Then it's okay. It's okay. You just have to accept it. Doesn't mean that you can't do it, but you have to accept it to stop battling those insecurities. And then you get objective. After you assess your insecurities, you get objective by focusing outward. What I mean by focusing outward here is you see how your work change. Maybe changing the world is like too big of a word, but maybe change your surrounding. For example, if you doodle and then someone else likes your doodle and he or she asks you for a doodle and then they're happy, then you have made a change for that someone. You have brightened up their day as well. Focus outward and focus on how your work has improved you and improved the life of others. Give it time. Being insecure about your work is not something that will be gone overnight after you've done these steps. And I just want to admit that even in my 7th year, I think it's my 7th year right now of being an illustrator, I still get insecure from time to time, especially when I scroll through Instagram and I scroll through others' pages. Even when I saw Sarah's work, I was quite amazed, but also felt like a bit pressured, like, oh, will I ever be that good in digital painting, for example? But it's okay. You just give yourself some time, give yourself some grace to just assess everything, accept everything, and then just do something objectively. And then this is my final tips about the things that I really find helpful in my entire career. It's that first you have to explore new possibilities. I know it's great that you are acing this one art style, for example, or you're so good using one medium, for example, if you're expert in using watercolor or gouache or oil or acrylic or something like that. But don't forget to always explore new possibilities, you know, because the thing is, people tend to follow trends as well. Like, I know you guys, especially here in Indonesia, you guys know that watercolor has been trending for, I don't know how many years right now. Like, everyone is trying to do watercolor painting. But what I find really helpful is when people started out this trend a few years ago, I already picked up gouache as well, and then learned how to do it when it's so rare here in Indonesia who uses gouache. And now, like, I can see gouache is trending, and it's great because I already know how to paint with gouache, and I already created a lot of artworks in gouache, which is a plus point for me. But also I need to start looking for another media to excel, because I know this trend will end someday, and then I have to be good at something else as well to survive in the industry, because people are getting better and better and better each day. Be honest, generous, kind, and humble. I agree with Sarah. You just have to engage genuinely with your followers. Still, you treat them as friends because they're promoting your work in a way. I also get my clients. 98% of my clients come from Instagram. They are all strangers. Even Changi Airport found me on Instagram, and it's also important to show who you really are, not to create like this fake persona that you know will impress someone, but you don't feel like it's really you. Just don't do it, because I think right now people can see right through you on social media. They know if you're being real or not. They know if you're being sincere and genuine or not. And other fun facts that I want to share is sometimes I win several projects, not only because of my social media presence, because my followers is not really that big actually compared to a lot of other illustrators. I might have like 30K followers, but I also know there are a lot of illustrators here in Indonesia who has like more than 100,000 or like 200,000. But I sometimes get picked by brands such as Changi Airport. I've been told this by Changi, that they found my caption all sincere, and I'm telling stories through my captions. That's why they're interested in the first place. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Yeah, you just have to tell people what's your work all about. And then comparison is the thief of joy. I'm sure everyone's know that, even though it's easier said than done. And then learn to clap for others. It's a very important tip. Learn to clap for others. When your friends, Sarah is clapping right now. When your friends win a project that you really want, when someone else is better at something than you just learn to congratulate them and to clap for them as well. It brings so many good feelings. It brings so many blessings returned to you. I learned about this since when I was a kid. People thought that as a kid I won so many drawing and painting competitions, but it's actually the opposite. I lost almost every single one of them, which made me really bitter as a kid. But my dad used my dad didn't allow me to go home until we found the kid who won, and then I got to congratulate the kid and the family, which really hurt me as a kid and which really hurt my pride. But as I grew up, I realized how important that quality is, and I realized that nowadays it's getting harder to find people that truly can congratulate and celebrate your victories. And so learn to clap for others. And then focus on your goals, love your work. Nobody will love your work if you don't love it yourself. Sometimes you can love your work as a whole, and that's okay, but practice by finding a spot that you really like about your work. For example, you're painting a huge painting of like a scenery, and then you don't really like the final result, but you can always try to find some spots that you really like. Like, oh, I might fail with this huge painting, but I really like this part over here. Try to appreciate the good things you've done or the little achievements that you have achieved. Ask questions, make the first move. What I mean over here is that I ask a lot of questions to a lot of professionals, even though I don't know them. Sometimes I send them emails. Just make sure to be polite and be respectful. Sometimes I do it not because I want to get something from them, but just out of my appreciation for them, for what they have been doing, and for the works that they have created that inspired me and so many others. I just want them to know that what they do matter. So I usually write an email or write a direct message and just tell them how much I love their work. Make your move, like just be easy about that. If you see something that you really like, learn to just compliment the person, learn to compliment their talent. I end up having so many Instagram friends over this kind of like correspondence. And the good thing about social media is that it connects us with a lot of people from around the world. So sometimes whenever I go traveling abroad, I I can meet with another illustrator and join their events abroad just because that I made the first move. So don't be afraid. Take some time off every now and then to avoid burnout, and then pick up a new hobby. This is so very important because when your hobby becomes your profession, then I think that you need something else to rewind and relax. So pick up a new hobby. For me, it's reading and hanging out with my friends. So whenever I feel burnt out, I just leave everything and don't touch my work for maybe a week, a full week, and then just have fun until I can get inspired again. Your vibe attracts your tribe. If you're grateful, you will attract grateful friends. If you're easy to congratulate your friends, you will attract people who are also willing to celebrate your successes. But yeah, if you're not a good person or you don't have good intentions, then that's also what you will get from the industry. Yeah, this is the last thing. Believe in what you are creating. No one else can say it with your voice because you're different from the others. You have a cultural background that is also different with the other. You have this personal experience. You're like an Instagram filter, you know. Like a lot of people can draw the same object, but the result will be different. So don't think that nobody needs your art, nobody needs your creation, because no one else can say it with your voice. That's all. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Sarah, for supporting me, for being so supportive throughout the presentation.
I have so many of these slides screenshotted.
Oh,
Like, I feel like I'm an artist with a lowercase a, you're an artist with an uppercase A. Like, I went so technical, and you're like, love yourself, be happy for others. And I'm just like, ah. I talked about Twitter for 20 minutes.
technical aspects. I'm so glad that you do cover it all so nicely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rachel, for the very inspirational material that you've prepared for us. Also for Sarah, maybe I would like to give Sarah some time to maybe explain a little bit about the work that you've done. I know that you have worked with Marvel to create a new character. If you search Sara Alfageeh,
Yeah, I can.
Google, like the first thing you see is like Marvel new character, the first Muslim character created by Sara Alfageeh, and I think that's very awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. Let me share my screen. Here we go. Google Chrome. Yeah. So if you go on my website, one of the main categories of illustration I have featured is character concepts. It is not in a part of illustration I ever thought I'd be hired for, because I kind of fell into it by accident when I did this first original drawing. And it was something I had done simply because I'd stumbled on an X-Men named Dust, who I thought was incredibly boring. And here in the US, you know, people who wear hijab, people who wear niqab, you know, people who are visibly Muslim, we are very much a minority over here. And so very often when you see people who identify like us depicted, it's not by someone who's actually from that community, from that faith. And I wanted to prove that this character could be just so much more interesting if you change something as simple as the design. And now for me, I didn't want to make a commentary on the drawing itself. I didn't want to make a commentary as a Muslim, as a woman or anything. I just wanted to go back to my craft and prove to people, as an artist, because of my own experience, because of my own background, I have more to say through my artwork. So instead of complaining about it, I wanted to say, you know what, if you want it done right, you do it yourself. And it was very much a fan art thing I did in about an hour. And the next thing I knew, the piece had gone viral and I was being contacted by the BBC News. And then the next thing I know, I was giving an interview to Al Jazeera, and everybody wanted to know why I would bother redesigning this character. Such a simple thing that I had done in an hour was gathering so much attention, because very simply, and going back to what Rachel was saying, no one can say things like you can with your own voice and with your own experiences. Illustration is truly just about communication. We're trying to talk to other people in a visual way, and you can't talk to someone unless you know what you're trying to say. And so you have to have a very clear idea of what that statement is going to be. And for me, it was very simply that in order for your work to be interesting, you had to care about it, and you had to pull into your own experiences in order to say something authentic. So after that piece went viral, I got the attention of a Marvel writer named Salahuddin Ahmed, and he is the current writer of Ms. Marvel. And a little known fact about Ms. Marvel and my own relationship with it, the Ms. Marvel comic is the reason why I became an illustrator today. It came out when I was a psychology student in my first semester, realizing I hated it, and it ended up being the #1 selling comic at Marvel. And if you don't know anything about Ms. Marvel, it is about a Pakistani American girl who gained superhero powers. And I was so shocked to see someone who identified similarly like me as an immigrant kid in America and seeing it as the most well-received comic. So I realized that if so many people were ready for a story similar to mine, then maybe I had something to offer too. And that kind of convinced me to truly pursue illustration. Fast forward 4 years later, I got the opportunity to actually draw for the same comic that convinced me to be an illustrator. And I got the wonderful opportunity to design an Arab American character, the first Arab American character for Marvel. And it was incredibly exciting. And they hired me for the same exact reasons for why I drew this Dust X-Men art. And it was because they're like, clearly, you know your background, you know how to ask the right questions, you're doing the research. We want you to take that experience that you have and translate it into a character that you'd want to see. And I was extremely lucky. The editors at Marvel were very trusting. They gave me a lot of freedom, very limited, parameters for the work. And unfortunately, though, I had only 2 weeks to do it because the issue had to go out. And that's a reality of working in comic books, and why I don't do it as often is the turnaround time is very very tight. And so I actually finished this on an airplane on my way to San Francisco because our company had to talk to investors over there. So it was a very hectic time for me. But I knew that a lot of eyes would be on this if I did it correctly. And I knew it would speak to a lot of readers who hadn't been spoken to before. And I wanted to put, every ounce of effort I had to pull it off. And so going back to what Rachel was saying about, success and perfection, I didn't want to make a character that I thought I had seen before. I very much had to think about who is the best character coming from me. Because I felt very intimidated because there's a lot of very excellent illustrators who have drawn for Marvel, and I'm nowhere near their skill set. I'm nowhere near their talent. But I was hired for a reason, and I had to kept reminding myself, why did they want me to do this job? Why was I the person to do it? And why am I specifically the best person for this job? And you have to keep reminding of yourself that whenever you tackle any kind of project. So yeah, that's my concept art for Marvel. And I've gone on ahead to do several other kind of character illustrations for video games and comics. And it always such a joy. If Rachel, if you're interested in moving more into publishing, I think you're very primed to do it as someone who's worked in fashion and in makeup and all of that, because it's the same thing, except you add a couple extra turnaround sketches.
Ah, wow. I'm just amazed seeing your work, I'm just paying attention to every detail that you just said.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So yeah, you're like Miss Marvel, I would say, Sarah, right? That you can relate to her. So I'm just I'm imagining yourself as Miss Marvel herself.
I think I can find it somewhere. I cosplayed as her when I was younger too, even before I was an illustrator. So I actually have a picture of me, I think at 18, going to a comic book convention. This was before I thought it was my career, dressed up as her. And then it's fast forward a few years. Now I'm making a character hopefully someone else will dress up as. And that's incredibly special.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, totally amazing. Okay, yeah, thank you guys again so much for preparing everything that you did for us. I would probably want to, open the question and answer session. So if you guys, of course, a lot of you have a lot of questions. I myself have a lot of questions, but yeah, you guys first for the students. If you want to ask a question, go ahead and turn on your microphones, introduce yourselves briefly, your name, where you're from, your batch, the basic stuff. So go ahead.
Okay, first question. My name is Asyar Purwapani Adiprade Pramono, and I am from VCD 2018. So I have a question for I think both Kak Sarah and Kak Rachel. For the first one is for Kak Sarah. I think I have a question about the captions on Twitter thing. I mean, is it possible? I mean, you said something about hashtags, right?
Yeah.
Why I haven't seen like I mean for the most part I've seen your posts are mostly on captions. I mean, how to start with the hashtags at first on Twitter especially.
So with hashtags, you kind of treat them very differently on Twitter than you do on Instagram. On hashtags for Twitter, they're considered like events. So often, a couple days a year, a certain event will happen where a lot of people will be posting with the same hashtag so that other artists can find them, other audience members can find them, and more importantly, editors and art directors, people who are hiring can find them. So it's very easy to go online and kind of poke around and see what are the hashtags that are currently being used. A couple of the popular ones that I say work for everybody include Portfolio Day. Portfolio Day is a very popular one that you can attach to like an important tweet. I wouldn't put it on everything, on every piece of work, but whenever you want to do like a pin tweet, attaching hashtag Portfolio Day is pretty good. And then they can become very specific as well. I know there's one for artists in Indonesia in particular. There's one for like artists that's in Southeast Asia, so it's like more of an umbrella term. There's women artists, which is also a very popular hashtag. So poke around and see, kind of like follow the artists who are both in your area and also international. And once you see them starting to use those hashtags some of the days, I would say like join them and create a new post. And don't feel like you're posting too much. You're always reaching new people whenever you post. And with Twitter in particular, it's more about quantity rather than just like a couple quality posts. You always want to be showing up again and again on people's timeline.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay, for Kak Rachel, let me think. I actually have something in mind before, but I kind of forgot what it is. But I think it's more about the illustration technique and maybe the connections and such. Itu gimana ya, Kak?
Pertanyaannya apa? Kayak, what's your specific question? Maksudnya kayak, how do I get my network? Or
Hmm, uh, okay, I have.
it's okay, Asher, santai. Take your time, santai.
Maybe later deh, Kak.
Okay.
Get back to Asher after this. Maybe somebody else.
Me?
Okay, go ahead, Jovi.
My name is Patnial Jovian Christian Bru. I am from VCD batch 2020. Firstly, I'm very excited when heard this webinar because I am very interested in comic world, graphic designer world, because my drawing style itself tends to Western. I very like to drawing character in like Marvel style. I like to drawing character of Marvel and DC comic. And what I want to ask is there any tips how to be a comic artist for Marvel like you? Maybe perhaps what we should study or the reference, any recommended books, and what are usually Marvel's requirements to hire a comic artist? That's from me.
Now,
Thank you.
question for you. What aspect of working in comics are you interested in? Because there are people who do the covers, there are people who do the interior artwork, and then there's people like me who do the design. So they're doing like character designs. Are you interested in all three, or is there one in particular?
Maybe I interested in cover and in character design.
Mhm. So for interior work, the first thing that I would really suggest is you have to show a lot of sequential pages. You have to show a lot of example comic pages in your portfolio, and make sure that it is the first thing that they see, and make it really front and center, and try not to fill your portfolio with too many different types of illustration. Try to focus on just the comic book work, or make a section dedicated to it. Because a lot of these editors and art directors, they don't have a lot of time when they're searching in different portfolios, because they're getting submissions, from all over the world, from hundreds of artists, sometimes every single week. So for them, they need to see your work instantly. So you make it as easy as possible for them. And then the second thing is practice taking existing scripts. So practice taking, pages that are already out there, and see how you would translate them, see how you would do it differently. So instead of copying styles a little too closely, make sure you're adding a little bit that is specific to you. Because if you're copying the style of another artist, what's to stop them from just hiring that artist? You need to add an element to it that is specific to you and unique to you. Especially right now, Marvel and DC are expanding the kind of styles they're hiring, which is really exciting, because a lot of people who wouldn't normally see themselves as a Marvel artist or a DC artist now have the opportunity to do so. So I would encourage you to also experiment with your style and just see what unique twist you can add to it. So having the comic book pages, making a clear section of your portfolio to showcase it, and then making sure to experiment with your styles are the three things that I would recommend.
Okay, does that answer your question, Jofi? Any
And there is any reference maybe from books? Like,
Yeah, I would suggest you look at a couple different styles, so you can just kind of see what the range is out there. I really recommend Young Avengers from Marvel. I do recommend Ms. Marvel, because they are doing some really exciting new styles there as well. And I would recommend Hawkeye by David Aja and what's the name of the other guy? Matt Fraction. They do a very simplistic style. So that way you're going to see like something a bit more classic, something a bit more experimental, and then something completely new. And you can kind of see like what you're personally interested in. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening right now from Marvel in particular. DC is still a little bit more traditional, but I would still look at what they're doing as well. Mm-hmm. And also just know that there's a lot of ways to be a comic artist that aren't specific to Marvel and DC. I would actually even say that they don't even pay the highest. If you want to make real money, go into graphic novels. That way you get to own your work.
Okay, how was that, Jofi? Any follow-up questions?
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. For me personally, I have interest in a style like David Finch and from DC, and also I forgot the name of Alex Ross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely. So remember, it's not your job to become David Finch. So just remember that at the end of the day, you have to be your own illustrator, and to really dig deep into like what you personally very much enjoy and adding that element to it.
Nice advice. Okay, so I think that answers your question, right, Jofi?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Okay, I think I have a question for Kak Rachel.
Okay.
I want to ask about the trends or something. How can you either see or expect what would come next, or maybe how can you adapt your style into the, or how can you find the trend that is suitable for your own art style? That's it. That's all.
Well, actually, first of all, the way I read what trends is going on right now is just being present on my social media platform and see what everyone else is doing. So I just know about what they're doing. Doesn't mean that I want to do that as well, but it's always nice to see what's happening right now in your surrounding, just to assess everything from a very objective light. So you just can get the plus point and the pros and cons from this trend that is going on. And I don't really predict what comes next because I couldn't do that as well. But I always try to find something new outside that trends. For example, if right now everyone is illustrating in a really vibrant way, doing florals, doing everything that is really girly and something like that, then I would explore outside that scope. I would explore something that still sweet but have a dark touch to it, or maybe how to use another color palette so that people would see that it's my work when they see a lot of works put together on the table. They know which one is mine because they notice my color palette. For example, is that. So yeah, I think don't pressure yourself to read these trends because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. It just means that you always have to improve yourself. You always have to evolve beyond what is happening right now. But you also have to have something that you stick on, just like Sarah said, being really good at something, being really specific about your work so that brands notice that. Because once that you have built your presence and then you have followers and then you have this everything going for you, they will give you more freedom to experiment. So they will not give you a lot of brief. They will want their brands to have your signature style on it. Yeah, so that's what's important, I think.
Okay, thank you, Kak.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Who else wants to ask? Who else has a question? Anybody? Don't be shy, guys.
We're friendly.
See, be friendly.
You can also drop your questions on the chat box.
Yeah, if you're shy to speak.
Drop your questions.
Something
Mhm.
wrong with your microphone. Okay, so maybe while you guys are thinking about what to ask, I have a question myself, probably both for Rachel and Sarah. Since these are, most of the students here are third-year students, which means that they will soon have an internship program. If they were interested in the illustration field, they want to perfect their ability, their skills in illustration, what would be a recommendation for them? Like what type of office or what type of studio would they go to do that?
I didn't do a traditional internship by the time I reached my third year. I accidentally did my internship when I was in college a little bit too early. And by that, I mean, I ended up just doing a lot of free art for a news media company, and I a little bit regret it. But what I ended up doing in my third year of college, which I briefly mentioned in my presentation, was I just assigned myself a project. And I did that in my summer of my third year. And that was kind of like my first major portfolio piece that would very quickly lead to the creation of my broader portfolio. Let me quickly share my screen and show that project off. One moment. Here we go. So this was the project that I had done in my third year. if it loads. So it was a crowdfunded project that I had put up on Kickstarter. I don't know if you guys have that website available to you, but it was a product line of pins and prints and patches and stickers that I focused on kind of doing around these three characters. So I wanted it to be like these three characters kind of with attitude and distinct colors that I would then not only turn into like a series of illustrations, but then a series of products that I then later sold to an audience. And I wanted to, it was a crash course in marketing myself, in production, in, how to present a project, how to finish an entire project. So I had to learn everything it took about starting this beginning to end. So I think finding something that you can commit wholeheartedly to and proving to yourself that you can actually finish a work is really important when you're at this stage, so that when you have just a few pieces on your portfolio, they're all of like high quality, and they're all a curated kind of presentation of the work you're capable of doing. Oh, and you'll also find out if you hate doing that kind of work really quickly, which is very important at this stage.
I agree. The internship part of your career is like where you experiment with what you want to do in the future or not, like trying to explore what you enjoy. Is that, yeah.
Find
So-
out what makes you bored and
Yeah.
never do it.
Okay, and maybe from Rachel, do you have any recommendation or any tips in choosing?
Well, maybe not so much of recommendations because my internship wasn't really exactly ideal for illustrators as well. I used to intern for this photography company that works in a wedding industry. So Sarah, as I told you last night when we met online for the briefing, this Indonesian is so big on wedding industry. People usually hold up parties from 500 to 1,000. So it's a really prospect industry in the creative industry as well. So and they are willing to spend a lot of money.
The main thing I've learned today is that you guys like to party.
No, I don't, but a lot of people do. Because like I don't really get why as well, but it's important for most of the people
No,
here.
I'm coming. That's it. You guys are having a good time apparently.
Yeah, but yeah, sometimes you invite people that you don't know as well, right? So yeah, I'm so interested in this industry because it's really creative. The way they do their decorations, their invitations, they can spend like maybe up to 200,000 Indonesian rupiahs. How much is it in USD? Maybe like 50.
Someone
30,
Google it.
20 until 50 US dollar per invitation. Like it's so expensive, right?
But
So,
low-key, that makes me really happy as an illustrator. I'm like, yeah, spend more.
but you're not really paid that high for the illustration itself because the biggest that they will get is in the printing industry. So I decided to intern in this a really prestigious photography company. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's called Axio. Like maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I interned at their company, they charge about almost almost Miss Lintang, how much is it in USD? Like, let me count it.
Don't worry about the conversion. I'll figure it out on my own time.
How many rupiah? How much rupiah?
100 juta euro.
Oh, wow. 100,000, that 100 million, that means about
7,000.
yeah, 7,000 to 10,000 USD.
About 7,000 USD for the pre-wedding photo only. Like, you know how crazy it is, right?
What?
So I really wanted to learn about the creative industry in this wedding aspect. But because they know I can do illustrations, I end up getting a lot more work than I was supposed to. So they asked me to do the graphic design, and then they asked me to just like being at their gallery as well. And then they also asked me to do illustrations for their photo albums, because the albums is also very expensive and can cost you almost half of the cost, maybe 300,000 USD. Like they will make like this huge Cinderella wardrobe just to store your wedding memento, so that you can always look back at it. Yeah, so I learned, but the good thing I think is to learn from them how to run a company, how to manage a team. This you can get from any company, I think. And then when you present your portfolio and they know that you can do illustrations, it's almost certain that they will also give you some work that is related to your portfolio. Yeah, so
that's actually something I think it's worth bringing up. It's the part of art that a lot of people don't really romanticize, but you do have to understand it. When you're an illustrator, you very often have to be an entrepreneur. You have to know business. You have to know how to price yourself. And you're saying you have about 3 or 4 people working alongside you. So when you're taking client work, you have to take into consideration that all of those people have to get paid. You have to pay for your studio space, for your materials, and all of that has to account. So when you're presenting yourself and you're presenting your skill set, you're saying, I am worth this amount of money, not because it takes me this amount of hours, but because I can bring it to you within your deadline, within your price range, and that is my worth. And you kind of have to throw all of your, self-confidence issues out the window and throw your shoulders back and be like, no, I'm going to be paid this amount of money for this job and no less than that. Now, I'm very lucky that I have an agent to take care of some of that conversations for me, but I do still handle some of those conversations as well when I'm hiring illustrators, since I've been on both sides now. Very important to price yourself for offering a luxury service. You guys are artists. Not everyone can afford you and not everyone should.
Yes, that's really true, because a lot of artists, a lot of my own friends who are artists and then illustrators, they don't really know how to price themselves and how to bring it up upfront to their clients. And they tend to just like procrastinate when they were asked about a quotation or an invoice. And I don't want you guys to do that. Just like it's pricing yourself also requires a lot of trials and errors. Am I right, Sarah?
And I would say that this is where having a community is incredibly important. Having peers who are in illustration, so that when you get a quote from a client, you quickly, go to your group chat and be like, hey guys, did you also get priced this when this client came to you, when this publisher came to you? Because they just gave me this. And I do this with all types of professional friends, people who have been professionals for 20 years and people who have been professionals for 2 months. We're always double checking prices with each other. People who are, have been in this industry much longer than I have, they're still coming to me and be like, I've never worked with this client before, but you have. How much did they offer you? So I know to like do some of that as well. When I did book deals, I ask my friends. When I do illustrations, I ask my friends. When I'm even hiring people, I'm asking other illustrators, like, what should I charge for this?
That's awesome that you have a community like that.
Yeah. If you guys are ever curious of any of my project, how much I got paid for it, I'm happy to share. I don't care.
Okay, how much did you get paid for?
Okay.
How much did I get paid for what? I'm happy to answer it.
What, Asher?
Illustrations at the very least.
Sorry? I'm confused by the question.
How much did you get paid for illustrations at the very least?
At the very least, I think the least, I don't know if it counts because I wasn't quite a professional yet. I think the cheapest I've ever done might have been the Marvel work. The Marvel work was priced pretty low for me, but I did that because I knew I could make the work go viral. And I wanted to establish that relationship with the client. The only time you should take a price that's lower is when it's a cause you care for example, like it's a nonprofit that you believe in the work that they're doing, or two, because you can make it work for you in other cases. So for me, the character design for Marvel was only 500 USD, which for the other examples that you see in my portfolio, I don't go below like 1,200, 1,500 per character design. So for me, that was less than half of what I normally do, but that's because that's the Marvel standard rates. Like, little known fact, Marvel pays garbage unless you're like a star artist. And for me, I told them, I was like, I'll take it on. I know I'm going to make it go viral, and it did. And so for me, that was worth it because it led to other much more paying jobs.
Yeah, very strategic. Nice.
And what's your most expensive character design or illustration work?
The recent Google Doodle paid pretty well compared to how much work I put into it. It was about 2 total days of work spread out over like a week or two, but it was 2 full days of work, and that gave me $4,000. So that's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, and just curious, how did you get that Google gig? I mean, did they approach you? Were you the one that
I kid you not. I swear to God, I have the proof. I literally tweeted out, I want to do a Google Doodle. And 2 weeks later, an art director reached, I'm not kidding. I have the proof. But that's what happens when you have a large following. And plus, I was doing work that fit the Google Doodle style already. It wasn't a stretch for them. But someone was like, hey, someone saw your tweet and put me in touch, and I like your work, and we have this opening. So it's a couple things. Like, one, I had the audience, I had the style, so I like could do the work. And the other thing is they had the opening. So sometimes an art director will notice your work, but you won't know about that until a year later when they finally have the perfect project for you. So just be patient, it'll come.
Wow. Okay, so that's very awesome. I mean, so guys, start tweeting, start posting on Instagram. I want to do a Google Doodle, who knows, they will approach you.
You don't lose anything.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Okay, very interesting. Does anybody else have a question?
Yes, can I?
Sure, okay, Agnia.
Okay, my name is Agnia. I'm from VCD batch 2018. The question is for both Miss Rahel and Miss Sara. You guys always emphasize us to have our own styles, but it's undeniable that we have our role models. Like myself, I really adore both of your works, especially Miss Rahel. I really love fashion illustration. And what I want to ask is, how do you not become too obsessed with your role model style until you don't have your own illustration style? Because I'm quite new in illustration, but I'm really interested to. Sorry, I'm really interested in doing illustration in my future career. I think that's all I want to ask. Hopefully, you can ask.
So how to develop your own style is the question? Yeah.
Yes, miss.
I have a small formula for this because I get this question a lot. It is what you like, all the things that you like, everything. Books, movies, show, your dog, everything. And then it's how much time you have. And then it's how lazy you are. And so like do that equation and it'll end up being your style, because I can copy any style that's put in front of me. If I have enough time, I can do it. But eventually I'm going to get bored, and that's when I quit. And when I get bored is my style, because that's why I'm like not going to render. I'm not going to do like heavy shading for all my colors. And I'm going to eventually, like, I'm going to stop. And illustration is about deadlines anyways. So figure out when you get bored, and that's your style.
That's amazing. That's the
That's a great formula.
I get this question a lot too. And for me, it's important to notice, and it's important to remember that you don't have to be pressured about your style from the start. Please just don't think too much about it, because style is something that really comes naturally. It's not something that you try to create or something that you're trying to fake just to imitate your role models. It's not something like that. I'm not saying that you can't have a role model. You can, and you can have a lot of them. It's there's nothing wrong in being inspired by a lot of other artists, but also don't limit yourself to a certain style. Like, if you like my style, for example, please look up about other artists that have like various styles and then different approach with mine, so that you can try everything. The thing about learning is it's okay to copy. We all start by copying something. There's nothing new under the sun. It's okay for you to copy, as long as you're doing it for learning purposes, like not for commercial purposes. And one thing that I also noticed from copying others is that you cannot be 100% exact, the same with them. Like, you can copy mine, you can copy Sarah's, you can copy other artists, but at the end of the day, there will always be something different in your work compared to this other artist. And when you try this, a lot of styles, let's say you are trying style A to style Z, you're copying everything, but there will be something consistent in your difference with them, and that would be your style. And style is not something that you can claim and then you tell everyone that, oh, this is my style, look at this, my style. No, it's something that other people will look and notice and tell you, like, oh, this is so you. I see this illustration and I know it's you right away. It's your style. So just don't.
It's like handwriting.
Yeah. So you don't have to.
We all copy letters, but then it becomes ours.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just don't be too pressured. Don't be too focused on or too so fixated on developing your signature style, but just do what you do consistently, and then other people will notice. I promise you.
I would also say, if you have a couple artists where, like, no matter what, you're like, dang, but their art in particular is just too good. It's too excellent. I just love everything about it. Like, don't be fixated on that one person, but instead try to figure out, how did they develop their style? Who influenced them? And so for me, I often, when people, they're like, oh, I like your style, I want to have a style similar to yours. I'm like, well, here are the people I look to, and I said the same thing about them. And here's the 40 artists that I looked at. And so I can be here in this room and I can copy every single person's style in this room. And in the end, I'll have something new, because I'll take this person's shading and this person's line art and this person's light for sense. And in the end, I'll come and make a hideous cocktail that I will call my own art style, but it'll be specific to me. And that's what matters. So I say the opposite: copy everybody, but just copy a little bit.
Yeah.
And also that kind of justifies the fact that there's no art style theft, doesn't it?
There's no art style theft?
Yeah.
Well, if I can confuse you for someone else, that is art style theft. But, the point is, there's no such thing as original ideas. We're all working with the same lines. We're all working with the same colors. No one's invented anything new. So it's just a different combination. I have the same number of lines that you all do.
That's true.
Okay, and does that style, I mean, for you, Rachel and Sarah, does it develop with time? I mean, do you think you've changed during your career with your style, and how does that work? How did it happen?
Do you want to go, Rachel?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, sure. I think it evolves just the way you evolve as a personality and as a person. Like, I find myself change a lot. Like, who I was years ago and who I am right now is, I think, very different. I like different food. I like different beverages. I like different movies. I listen to different songs, and it's all mixed. It's all mixed up in my head, in my heart, and it just gives me a new filter to see things. And that way I interpret things differently as well. And I'm so excited to see my art evolves the way I evolve. I like the changes. I give that space to myself to always change, to always evolve. And I think it would be wonderful, right? Like to have the opportunity to change all your life instead of being this one exact person with the one same style over and over again until you're old.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's when your style changes, it just means you're learning and it means you're experimenting more, which is very exciting. And you don't really know where your art's headed until you stumble on and you're like, what? I'm capable of doing this. This is amazing. I want to keep doing this. And actually, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is finishing my book, because with my current deadlines, I'm not allowed to expand my style for a full year. I'm not allowed to experiment. I don't have the time to experiment. And it can be very frustrating because I'm seeing where I'm developing as an artist and I'm not allowed to practice it yet because I'm stuck doing a project or finishing a deadline. And that can be it's a lifelong problem as a professional artist to make sure you're still growing and you're still developing your skill set, because when you're in the beginning, all you want is all the work in the world. All you want is, all the projects, and you're like, why would that ever be a problem? And then all of a sudden, all you have is just professional projects, and you miss that hunger from when you're a student and you see all the opportunities. Like, I wish I could go back in time where my main problem is not having a style, because that means I can try out 1,000 different things and there's no pressure to it. Now, unfortunately, with all your limited time, you're like, I have to do this sketch so I could post it to this social media, so I can add it to my portfolio. And the art no longer becomes for you anymore. So always leave a little extra time on your plate to be just an artist again.
Okay, thank you. Agnia, does it answer your question?
Hey.
Okay.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions, guys? We still have about 5 to 10 minutes. No? Still look shy.
Miss,
Okay.
Yeah, Jofi?
you first.
Rio or Jofi? Ma.
You first.
Okay. Thank you. It's just a little question about an experience. Before that, I would like to introduce myself, Satrio. My name is Satrio Adiantares. I'm from VCD batch 2020. I wanted to ask to, especially maybe to Miss Sarah, because that's always in my mind about going like international like that as an artist, because my like doctrine or like my inspirational views of art for me is like bringing my own culture from my own hometown, and that, and I always ought to think that I cannot forget my own culture wherever I am. So when I looked at your artworks, especially at Miss Marvel, doing like Muslim characters, I really appreciate it about that. And what I wanted to ask is um, the experience of facing maybe like um, maybe it's already said in Miss Rachel speech, because it's about facing different people opinion about our artworks like that. Like how do we stand stronger and like keep going and giving what we want to give, like that.
Yeah. So when I was a student, and especially talking about, being aware of your individual background, your individual culture. So I went to art school here in Boston, and I was the only Muslim person in the whole school, especially visibly Muslim. And I wanted to make it very clear that I was a damn good artist, first and foremost. And I wanted to prove to people that I could draw amazing illustrations, and I didn't stick out because I was doing topics no one else was doing. I wanted to be like, no, I stick out because I have the technical skill. I wanted to be, you know, the best artist in my class. I didn't want to be a Muslim artist. I just wanted to be an artist. And that was good in one respect, because on one hand, I felt like I was developing my skill set very clearly before I started to push my concepts. But by the time I reached my third year and my fourth year of college, and I was starting to think of my professional portfolio and how I was presenting myself, I had a very serious conversation with one of my professors who was like, why don't you do, you know, this concept? Why don't you pull from your background? Why don't you do something that's personal to you instead of doing like just fantasy illustrations all the time? And at first I was annoyed, because I was like, do you think that's the only thing I have to offer? Is that why you're telling me this? And then I realized, like, what was I pushing back against? Like, what was the point? Where was this resentment coming from? And I was like, I have a perspective that very few other people have. And I have a background that I can pull from in a visual language and a visual culture that I can access. Like, why don't I use those skill sets that I have? And I ended up developing this project here. Let me share my screen real quick. And it actually ended up being the first professional project I had done when I was in my second semester of my third year. And it was these cards that I had developed. And these were based off of Bedouin tribes. My background is Jordanian. And so these were tribes that were from that area. And it was the first time I had done something related to my identity, related to my culture. And it was very, very well received by the students in my class when we had done critiques, but also when I published it to Twitter, immediately was, you know, very well received, went viral, and a video game company hit me up to do card art for them. It was for a video game. And then I realized, I'm like, well, why did I stick out? I'm not the best artist in the room. I'm not, you know, I'm not the strongest, you know, like inker. I wasn't, there's nothing about this that from a technical standpoint should have gotten their attention. But instead, what they noticed is I was doing the research and I was coming up with concepts they hadn't seen before. And I was tapping into an experience and into a background that other people didn't know how to access. And that gave me a lot of self-confidence in my work in a way that I hadn't experienced before. And so that's what you kind of have to do when you're presenting yourself as an illustrator and you want to bring your identity to the forefront. You have a lot to offer as an illustrator. You have to have the strong skill sets, but don't shy away from expressing all parts of yourself, because ultimately you are speaking through your work. You are offering up your own worldview, your own experiences, and you have something to say. And if your background and your culture and your identity is part of it, present it proudly if that's what you want to do. You'd be surprised what opportunities come out of it. You won't know until you try.
Nice, really nice.
Okay. Nice. Who else wanted to ask a question? Was it Jofi?
Maybe this is out of topic, but if you have a time, may I share my portfolio or my drawing for Miss Sara, so you can give me some personal assessment?
Now, a question for you, Lintang, is: do you think we should do this in the Zoom call to share with everybody, or should I take this by email?
I think by email is best. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My email, I think, should be, I'll put it in the chat. So actually, this is a broader offer for everybody here. I do take a lot of emails by emerging artists and students to help them out with portfolio development. So if you ever have any questions or you're looking for critique on anything tied to publishing or illustration, you can shoot it over to me at alphaillustration@gmail.com. I put it in the chat. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. How do I not privately message them?
Thank you.
Everyone. Alpha illustration @gmail.com. There we go.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate your kindness in wanting to give feedback to emerging artists and students. That's very great. Okay, probably anybody else has a question? We only have 1 minute left. Probably with the last question.
Do you also give constructive criticism as well or something?
All portfolio reviews should be constructive. I'm
Oh,
not going to
okay.
just email you suck. It should ideally be constructive. If it's not, please return feedback to me. Give me a review.
Okay. So, okay, I'm guessing there's no other questions, but of course, since Sarah has shared her email, then probably you can personally contact her if you have any further questions that you haven't thought about yet. So the last question would probably be from me. I usually ask this to all of our guests, our speakers from the previous webinars as well. So for Rachel and Sarah, do you have any specific tips for these students here on how to conquer, or maybe like, yeah, any tips while you're in college? If you guys imagine yourself back in college, what would you say to yourself?
Sarah, do you want to go first or?
Yeah, sure. I would say, like, first off, one of the best experiences at my art school. I have a lot of complaints about my art school experience, but that's not either here or there. But I would say one of the best parts of that education was the fact that it was very interdisciplinary. I had access and I had lots of friends across many different majors, you know, filmmakers, animators, graphic designers, you know, and the richness of being surrounded by all these different disciplines. It's not something you find easily outside of school. So really make those friends, make those connections, try stuff you wouldn't normally try otherwise, because you don't know what you'll fall in love with and you don't know what you'll hate. You know, both are important to know. So I would also say, like, really, really value the fact that you are in a structured learning setting, and that after you graduate, your schedule is your own. So learn from now how to manage your own free time and how to manage your own time, because no other skill set will be more valuable. You can draw all day and all night, and you can draw like perfectly, but if you can't meet that deadline, you're in trouble.
Nice. Nice words to live by, guys. To students, listen to Sarah.
Seriously, treat homework like client work. I can't stress this enough. Like, really, half of my portfolio when I graduated was homework. Clients didn't need to know that. They didn't need to know that it was student work, because I didn't treat it like student work.
Okay. So how about from Rachel?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Sarah has said just now. And if I can add, I just want to encourage you guys not to limit yourself to your university life only, because 90% of what I have learned that is really useful for my professional career, I learned them from doing actual projects. Like sometimes it's free, sometimes I'm just helping out another professional artist, sometimes I volunteered at an event or something. But you really learn and see a lot of things that you won't get by doing your task from your college only. You can see how actual people interact and connect. And it's very important that you can handle all types of people. That's really important when you're just like, for example, if you're doing a live painting service, not everyone would appreciate you. And if someone says something rude to you, to your face, how would you react? That I really learned, and that really needs courage and humility to be able to hang nicely with everyone. Yeah, but it also takes years to develop that trait. So yeah, make sure that you meet a lot of people, you know how to interact with them, you know how to work with them, and you know how to work for them as well. Yeah, that's important. And then don't forget to support your friends. If they're starting out, you show love, show some support, because it will all come back to you. And just remember that this is art. It's not science or anything. Like, you're not pressured to invent something. So everybody could win. Doesn't mean that if someone wins that you're losing. It doesn't have to be like that always. So yeah, you can win and other people could win too. So yeah, that's it from me. And then don't forget to enjoy, because that was like, even though I have a lot of complaints to my art school as well, I don't think it's like
We always do.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Who's fully satisfied with their art experience?
Yeah.
but
I'd like to find them.
and then I also enjoy those 4 years. I really enjoyed those 4 years, and then take opportunity, just like Sarah told you, just see your surrounding, know your friends, learn their backgrounds. And the thing that I always did when I was a student is I asked everyone to teach me. So I always approach everyone who has like better skills, better anything, and then just ask them like, how do you do this? Could you point out something?
You never want to be the best artist in the room. That's
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, that's and
Always aspire to be the worst, because then there's only one way to go and it's up.
yeah. That's really true. And then you will be surprised at how much people want to share with you too. You can always ask them about your work. Ask your friends about your work, because sometimes when you're so used to your work, you cannot see something is wrong. You cannot see that you're lacking something. So ask them.
And that extends to social media as well. You'd be very surprised how when you I feel like a lot of emerging artists place those like high follower count artists on a pedestal, when in reality they're a lot closer to you in career stage, in attitude. And so, you know, don't feel intimidated talking to these more established artists. They're very often happy to share what they know. They want other people to succeed. There's plenty of work out there. You're never in competition with anyone. Because at the end of the day, you know, your work is yours, and the right jobs will find you, the right audiences will find you, just when you put in the time and the work. So root for each other. It'll be all right.
Yeah. Don't worry too much. There's enough job for everyone.
Great inspirational quotes from you guys, suggestions and tips. Thank you again so much, Rachel and Sarah, for your time, for all the effort that you put into this webinar. I appreciate you. I can't appreciate you enough. So I guess this may be the end of our webinar, but of course, before we all leave this room, I'd like to document this very valuable time. So I want to screenshot this webinar. So please turn on your cameras, guys, if you can. So I will count to 5 and wait for you guys to turn your cameras on, and then I will screenshot. So 1.
Are we all doing peace hands? Is this what we're doing?
3, 4, 5. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, we have 2 pages. So wait, the next page, there's nobody turning on their camera, but
Wait.
okay. Oh yeah, Ma'am Siska. So
Sorry.
Sarah and Rachel, this is the head of our study program.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for joining us. Such a great share. I really love your both of your work. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank
you for
you
having
to share
us.
your time, your precious time.
Yeah.
Really.
It was very inspirational. I'm sure it's very
Yes.
relatable with our students as well. So hopefully you guys, of course you learned something new today, but hopefully you can implement it to your, your career, your life. So I guess, again, that is it for today. Thank you all so much for joining, all of the audiences. Thank you for registering. Good evening to Sarah. Good night. Get some rest. I know it's already 11 p.m. there, so have a good night's sleep. I hope you had a great time here. Also for you, Rachel, have a good day. And I hope we can see you guys soon in another occasion, in another opportunity, and please keep in touch. So
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
I'm so glad you
Rachel.
guys invited me and hosted me. It was a real pleasure to talk with you guys. And even though you're across the world from me, I promise you that your concerns, your worries, your hopes, your ambitions as artists are shared by other artists like all over the globe. We're in this together. We'll figure it out. You'll be okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Miss Lintang.
Thank you,
You're welcome,
ma'am.
MC
Thank
Scott.
you.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye, Sarah. Keep in
All right,
touch.
I'm free to hang up now, right?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
I'm gonna sleep so hard.
Right. Thank you for the insights. So, see you guys.